Crankbait trolling has been gaining popularity every year for the last 12 years, and it just hasn't slowed down at all. And it's easy, it's fun, and you can still catch crappie in a time frame that a lot of people kind of put away the crappie rods. Well, the crappie are all done with their spawn, and so they're starting to move out to their, their summertime areas. And for a lot of these lakes, everybody, thinks that they gotta go to the brush, they gotta go to the docks. But one of the things they do, they just come out here to these open water areas and chase baitfish. Well, we've just got our lines out. We've got 5 lines out for trolling these crankbaits. Our baits are running about 15 feet down. The boat's in about 60 feet of water right now. I like to idle along, or not idle, I like to troll along these bluffs. Fish right now are suspended anywhere from 5 feet down to 30 feet of water, and they're chasing a little tiny baby shad. So today I was able to introduce somebody that's never done any crappie fishing. Well, never done any crappie trolling before. He's done a lot of crappie fishing, but to do it in such deep water was kind of a new thing for him and for most people.
Jack, why did you even start trolling crappies?
I started trolling crankbaits probably 10, 12 years ago. It's easy. When it works right, you'll have these rods and you just concentrate on the rod tips, and then when one starts to bend over, you just grab it and pull them in. And another thing that's kind of nice about this is we're using bass equipment. Man, we can catch a catfish with that, we can catch a bass with that. We're using a little bit beefier gear. So my normal setup when I'm trolling is I'm gonna have 5 rods out the back. For me, 5 seems to be a good number, because if you don't have, at least 3 out, you're really not doing the job of getting enough baits out in the water. And if you put more than 5 out, well, sometimes you get tangled up.
You can get it back over the top.
Right off the bat, we had some action, catching more bass than we were crappie.
You want to grab it, Jack?
Sure do. Boy, he ate that thing, didn't he? That's a good sign right there. Finally got one that eat it good. Thank you, Mr. Bass. Then we moved over to another area. It was even a deeper part of the lake. I'd say the boat was spending a lot of time in 60, 70, 80 feet of water. The bluff just tends to hold fish throughout the year, but in particular this summer and the winter, I fish a lot of bluffs. And that's really why we're pulling up here. A lot of deep water. And there's an old river bend that comes up through here. There's a couple little points that come out. It's just been a good spot. The current flow is intermittent right now, so sometimes we're having current, sometimes we're not. And a lot of the crappie are starting to feed up on shad.
It's on the pink one.
That pink's starting to come on strong here. That's their preferred color so far. More consistent than the other colors. I might have to grab the pliers here.
Nice.
Guys, I'm quick to grab the pliers too. Anytime I've got a treble hooked bait, whether it's a crappie, a crankbait, or topwater or whatever, treble hooks, you gotta be extra careful for. These hooks nowadays are sharper than they've ever been in the past.
This pink color been kind of the pattern that we're gonna move to, you think?
With today's sky conditions, it's a partly translucent bait. It's got some reflective capabilities to it. For whatever reason, crappie tend to like chartreuse probably the most, and then they like pink a lot. With all the baits being in the same general area, all the baits being the same general depth, they will tell you what they prefer. You gotta pay attention to which rod's not getting bite. Another thing I'm gonna do too, guys, that rod just caught a fish. So I'm gonna move these other rods in a little bit and cast the one that just caught the fish on the outside. That way they don't get tangled up with the other rods. So this was the hottest color today. I've got it on a 7-foot medium action Max Pro combo. Really a smooth setup. I was pleased with this. It's got a soft enough tip to where it flexes when you need it to. One of the best things about it is, I put it with this braid on here. And This is X9 from Berkeley, 20 pound, super strong line. And then I tie a little leader on there of monofilament, that's 10 pound. You know, you could really hold your own with this. This is a great multi-species rod. I like spinning reels for this. You know, spinning reels, you can adjust your drag real easy if you need to. This is a Max Pro in the size 30. This is a reel that you can do just a little bit of everything with.
Do you tend to like more wind?
I definitely prefer to have some wind. All species, but in particular crappie, they just like to have a little bit of a breeze.
Yeah.
You want to have some breeze, but you don't want to have so much breeze that you're being blown all over the place and your lines are getting crisscrossed.
Right.
The baits are only going down 15 feet. Crappie are hanging in 20 feet. And there we started getting into a little bit more consistent crappie. See, I like what you're doing. You try to get them up on the surface there.
Yep.
And that makes them a little easier to reel in. Now we got a race. Who can get them in first? If they don't hit the bluff.
Oh yeah, look at here.
All right.
Boy, that's a nice crappie. Wow.
Yeah, you got me beat on the size.
I did, look at that. Sorry about that.
Keep it going.
Two different colors here too now.
You know, these are a little flashier colors. Not quite as translucent as the last one, but you know, we probably ran over a little school of crappie there that was feeding on some shad, and a couple more going in the live well. When you're trolling crankbaits, you get to really compare, you know, all the different crankbaits back there, and the fish will tell you which one's the best, which color's the best, which one's got the best action. And so we had some flicker shads that we were trying. They've been catching some fish, and they're great trolling baits. We also had good success with some of the money badgers today. This is a new crankbait. So one of the things about this bait, when you look at it, when it's being pulled, it's got a lot of roll, but then it's also got a wobble. There's times where they are looking for something aggressive like that. Another thing that they've come up with, which is just almost lucky, is that it's very resistant to getting hung up. It's still a crankbait, it still can get hung up, but this goes through a lot of rocks better than most other crankbaits. This is that 6.25 size, and pink pearl. As you see, it's got a pink belly, pink top, and pearl sides, and a little bit of black around the eye. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's got a weight transfer system in there of a tungsten ball, and it really helps to cast it. So far, so good. It's been a good crankbait.
So I've done a lot of trolling in the past for walleyes, never a crappie. This is really cool, but typically we'll have, you know, our holders along the side of the boat. You were telling me earlier this is like a spider rig. I've seen that before. I've never done that either, but you're using these spider rigs for trolling. That's interesting.
Yeah, the company is called Millennium, and
it's really cool how you can twist them any which direction you want them.
They're
you
really
have them nice and spaced out.
They're really designed for spider rigging out the front of the boat, and what we're using them for here at Lake of the Ozarks is we're trolling with them out the back of the boat, and it spreads out your rods. You know, we've got 5 out today. You know, 5, you really got several baits out there. You can see what colors they're choosing today, but it's not too many that you're constantly dealing with tangles. That outside rod just got a bite.
It's on that pink.
That's the new one we just put out there?
Yes, sir. That's number 5.
You know, I was just slowing down. I slowed down, I killed my trolling motor there for a minute. Let it slow down for a second, and then bam, another fish. And the last few years, we're seeing a lot more people getting into trolling again. And, you know, we're catching a variety of fish with it. We caught several bass today trolling, out in open water a lot of times. Anybody could have caught this bass right here that I just caught. You know, my little daughter, 5-year-old, she would have had a blast catching this fish. There were several fish up the top of the surface feeding on little minnows. We were throwing some jigs out the front of the boat. I still tried to keep the boat moving, and we were catching fish out of the back of the boat and out of the front of the boat. Oh, nice largemouth. You got 6 pound.
Well, we just seen some schooling largemouth. Had a crappie tube that we were skipping up under docks and threw it up into the pod schooling and
I got one on
caught
back
a nice
here.
little bass on a crappie tube.
And I got a crappie on a crankbait. And he choked it.
Ooh, that's a nice one.
Well, just as those other guys started feeding, this guy got competitive and started feeding also. Nice crappie. Gosh, that was a fun deal. You know, those are kind of things that you don't necessarily predict happening in the middle part of the day, but when you're out there on the water, you know, things happen and you take advantage of them.
First time I've ever had a double up on 2 different species on 2 different techniques.
Yeah.
Casting for bass up front and catching crappie trolling on the back.
It's easy to do, it's fun, it's recreational fishing. And I think a lot of times we tend to complicate fishing quite a bit, and trolling is just, you know, it's just a lot of fun. It's just a fun way to catch them.